25 wonderful random facts to enjoy before going to sleep. You're not about to hear the usual trivia. Today, I'm going to give you the dirt on a Vatican, the most dangerous movie ever made, and I'll even cover how hippo poop causes fish. Add in some secrets locked inside frozen bubbles, and you've got a bedtime list worth staying awake for. But before I begin, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe with the notification bell, because it really helps the channel. Thank you guys so much. That being said, I'm Mike with List 25, and before you close your eyes, here are 25 wonderful random facts to enjoy before going to sleep. 25. The Banquet of Chestnuts. On Halloween night in 1501, Cesare Borgia, son of Pope Alexander VI, threw a scandalous party right inside the papal palace. And we know all about it thanks to Johann Burchard, the Pope's master of ceremonies. He wrote that after dinner, 50, let's just call them ladies of the night, danced, first clothed, then naked. Chestnuts were scattered across the floor, and the women crawled to collect them while the Pope, Cesare, and his sister Lucretia watched. The evening ended with prizes for whoever could perform the act the most often with the courtesans. The details of the so-called Banquet of Chestnuts stayed hidden until 1884 when the Vatican opened its archives. Now, it goes without saying that some Catholic historians have dismissed the account as slander meant to ruin the Borgia's name, but historian Giles Milton argues it suits them perfectly. The Pope already had 5 illegitimate children, and even kept a mistress under the same roof as the Holy See. Considering the family's record of corruption and murder, this scandal wouldn't be out of character. And if you played Assassin's Creed, you'd probably also agree. 24. Chatbots in space. If ET ever comes down to talk with us, the first barrier will probably be communication. And since this is 2025, some scientists believe the best way to greet intelligent aliens might be with a chatbot. Yep, the unconventional proposal recommends that if it ever happens, we should send a large language model into space. Instead of broadcasting math, music, or coded messages like we've done before, the idea is to beam out an AI capable of holding conversations. In theory, extraterrestrials could interact with it, pick up human languages, and get answers that reflect our world. Naturally, this comes with risks. The last thing we need is aliens learning about all our weak spots and mistakes, or worse, walking away convinced that our greatest form of communication is sharing weird short-form videos. 23. Dr. Pepper's name. Dr. Pepper isn't just old. It's been around longer than drinks like Coca-Cola and Pepsi. It first appeared at the St. Louis World's Fair in 1904 and quickly spread across the country. As for the name, that story takes us to Waco, Texas, where a drugstore owner named Wade Morrison came up with a recipe for the drink. Morrison used to have a thing for a young woman he couldn't quite win over. Her father was Dr. Charles Pepper, a respected physician from Virginia. Whether it was out of respect or a little nostalgia, we'll never know. But Morrison decided to name the new soda after him. And fun side note, the company eventually dropped the period after Doctor in the 1950s. 22. Worms and canned salmon. In 2025, the University of Washington got a donation most of us would never want: tins of expired salmon. The tins from 1979 were originally kept as part of a quality control test, but by the time the university received them, nobody cared that much about the salmon itself. What researchers really wanted were the worms inside. The cans contained 4 Pacific Northwest varieties: chum, coho, pink, and sockeye, and the ecologists were looking for Annihilates, a type of marine parasite about a centimeter long. Now, I know, worms in your salmon isn't something you really want to hear about, but be that as it may, their presence is actually an indicator of a healthy ecosystem. After testing the fish, the scientists found that the Annihilates had increased over time in the pink and chum salmon, but remained stable in coho and sockeye. So gross with a dash of gross? Yes. But we also now know that the pink and chum populations support richer ecosystems than the others. 21. The most dangerous movie ever made. Every movie buff has their own idea of the most dangerous movie ever made. But trust me, the 1981 film Roar takes the cake. Director Noel Marshall and actress Tippi Hedren thought it would be a good idea to make a movie about a family living with more than 150 untrained lions, tigers, and other big cats. What could possibly go wrong? Well, just about everything. The movie took 11 years to complete, and during that time, more than 70 cast and crew members were mauled or injured. People ended up with broken bones, hundreds of stitches, gangrene infections, and even a scalping wound or two. 20. Cats prefer the left side. If you've got a cat at home, check how it sleeps. Chances are, it's lying on its left side. Researchers have analyzed more than 400 YouTube videos of snoozing felines. Oh, so there is a use for all those videos after all. And found that about 2/3 of them favor the left. Animal behavior experts think it might be a survival trick. The right hemisphere of a cat's brain handles vision from the left side, spatial awareness, and threat response. By curling up on their left, cats may be keeping the right half of the brain more active, ready to react if something dangerous happens. House cats can spend up to 16 hours a day sleeping in relative ease, but their wild ancestors didn't have that same luxury, and being able to wake up fast could have meant the difference between life and death. 19. The first evidence of a gladiator killed by a lion. Earlier this year, in 2025 for anyone watching in the future, archaeologists in York, England made a discovery that put real teeth in Roman history. They uncovered the skeleton of a man buried around 1800 years ago at Driffield Terrace, a site long suspected to be a gladiator cemetery. At first glance, the bones looked ordinary, but the bite marks on his pelvis told a different story. The wounds matched the jaws of a big cat, most likely a lion, and they never healed. That means the bite itself killed him. To make things even grimmer, the body was later decapitated, possibly as an act of mercy after the fatal animal attack. Until now, evidence of gladiators fighting animals in Roman arenas came mostly from written accounts. This skeleton is the first physical proof that it really happened. 18. Nature annihilates billions of trees every year. Everyone knows it's a bad idea to stand under a tree during a thunderstorm. I mean, if the lightning doesn't get you, it might take down the tree instead. And thanks to a 2025 study, we now know just how often that happens. Lightning kills about 320 million trees annually, and it doesn't always stop at one. Researchers in Panama tracked strikes with a camera-based detection system and found that a single bolt often jumped from trunk to trunk, taking out an average of 3 trees at a time. As destructive as that sounds, lightning only accounts for about 6% of tree deaths. Other natural causes like wildfires, insect infestations, parasites, and massive storms add up to an incredible 50 billion trees lost every year. 17. The real-life Forrest Gumps. You'd never expect a movie line about just feeling like running to spark an actual movement, but it did. Since Forrest Gump came out, people have been lacing up and running across the United States. By 2012, a running tally counted 283 crossings by 252 runners. More recent numbers say less than 400 people have ever tried and finished, which makes it a pretty exclusive club. And then there's Rob Pope. From 2016 to 2018, he recreated Forrest's zigzagging route, covering about 15,600 miles in 422 days. He ended at Forrest Gump Point in Monument Valley, proposed to his partner, raised money for charity, and even snagged a Guinness World Record for fastest marathon dressed as a movie character while doing it. How many of those attempts are out there? 16. The Palindrome Hall of Fame. A palindrome is a word or phrase that reads the same forward and backwards. Think mom or race car. Some of our favorite ones we found during our research were things like the Satyr sequence, Satyr Repo Tenet Operatus. This 5-word Latin puzzle goes back to the 1st century CE, and archaeologists have uncovered it in Roman ruins and early Christian churches all across Europe. The crazy part isn't just its age, but its perfect symmetry. You can read it in any direction, top to bottom, bottom to top, left to right, or right to left. Then there are languages just outclass English completely. Finnish speakers, for example, can casually drop Saipua Kivikaupius in no conversation. It means soapstone vendor, and at 19 letters long, it holds the record as the longest everyday palindrome in the world. Meanwhile, in English, the best palindrome might be the term abophobia, which is literally the fear of palindromes, which is just awesome. And palindromes aren't just about words. Mathematicians discovered that any positive number can be expressed as the sum of exactly 3 palindromic numbers. For example, 613 works out as 505 plus 88 plus 20, and so on. So yeah, so much more than mom. 15. We could soon be printing human parts. Most people think of 3D printing as a gimmick. You make a goofy figurine, maybe fix the handle on your stove, and then put the printer away. But in medicine, the same idea could actually change lives. Scientists at the University of Hawaii are working on what they call bioprinting. Instead of spitting out melted plastic, these machines use bioinks made from human stem cells. That's huge, because stem cells can grow into different tissues, even organ-like ones. The first major step is using bioprinting to treat burns, chemical injuries, or even infections that don't respond to antibiotics. And they're already thinking bigger. Bioprinting tissue could protect and treat soldiers, maybe even things like custom protective contact lenses. On top of that, it could let researchers test new treatments on lab-grown tissue instead of animals, which, let's be honest, would be a massive win all around. 14. The world's IVF babies. IVF, or in vitro fertilization, is the process of fertilizing an egg with sperm in a lab dish. For people struggling to get pregnant, it's been nothing short of life-changing. The first IVF baby arrived in 1978, and while the science is almost 50 years old now, it's still going strong. In fact, somewhere in the world, a test tube baby is born every 35 seconds. So, how many people are here today because of IVF? Researchers say the number's past 13 million. That estimate comes from health data across 101 countries, but it's far from complete. The first IVF registry didn't even exist until the early 80s, and many clinics and countries still don't report their numbers, which means the real total could be closer to 17 million. 13. Ping-Pong accidentally fixed US-China relations. In 1971, during the World Table Tennis Championships in Japan, American player Glenn Cowan stayed behind to practice a little longer. At some point, he looked up and realized he'd missed the team bus and was the only American left in the room. Pretty embarrassing, but he shrugged it off, climbed onto the Chinese team's bus, and hoped for the best. At the time, the US and China hadn't spoken in over 20 years, so you can imagine the tension on that ride. Then, something unexpected happened. Zhuang Zedong, the captain of the Chinese team, struck up a conversation with Cowan through an interpreter. Before long, he handed Cowan a silkscreen print as a gift. Cowan returned the gesture with a t-shirt featuring a peace symbol. Just like that, they had the attention of their leaders. Soon after, Mao Zedong invited the entire US team to visit China. The very next year, President Richard Nixon made his historic trip to Beijing, all because one guy missed a bus. 12. Neanderthals love diving. When we picture Neanderthals, we definitely don't think of them splashing around in the oceans, but some of them did just that. A 2020 study at the Grotta dei Masciarini, a seaside cave in Italy where Neanderthals lived about 100,000 years ago, found at least 171 seashells there that had been shaped into scrapers. They all came from the Mediterranean smooth clam, and while many were likely picked up during beach walks, the evidence showed that about a quarter were harvested directly from the seafloor while the clams were still alive. In other words, Neanderthals were diving. Researchers have also noticed that many Neanderthal skulls have bony ear growths, a condition known as surfer's ear. Surfers, divers, and swimmers usually get it from spending long hours in cold water. So, while we like to think of them as hunters in caves, some of them were clearly comfortable spending time underwater. 11. Hippos cause fish massacres. The Mara River winds through Kenya and Tanzania, and on a normal day, it looks like a watering hole straight out of a National Geographic documentary. Beautiful. But when the rains come, things get messy. The water rises, then drops back again, and suddenly the banks are lined with dead fish. Scientists wanted to figure out what was going on, so they spent 3 years running tests on 171 hippo pools upstream, and since hippos are basically tanks with teeth, they used remote-controlled boats to keep everyone safe. The results were 100% disgusting. They discovered that the hippos dump about 9.3 tons of poop into those pools every single day. That waste breaks down, sucks the oxygen out of the water, and fills it with nasty stuff like ammonium and hydrogen sulfide. Then, when it rains, all of that gets flushed into the river at once. The result? The water becomes toxic, and the fish suffocate. Some of those floods were strong enough to wipe the fish out 13 times over. 10. A very unique spider. This pretty little guy is the feather-legged lace weaver. It doesn't look like much at first glance. In fact, most people would probably mistake it for a scrap of leaf or plant debris. But hidden inside that unassuming little body is one of the strangest hunting methods in the animal kingdom. It kills with vomit. The spider first immobilizes its prey by wrapping it in meters of silk, and then it regurgitates a corrosive chemical soup that digests the victim from the outside. Scientists have been onto its strange hunting style for almost a century, but they only confirmed it after seeing the evidence left behind by spiders hiding out in garden centers in the odd potted office plant. 9. Secrets in frozen bubbles. People have hidden secret messages in all kinds of clever ways. But here's one I bet you haven't heard of. Bubbles. Scientists have figured out that by tweaking the size, shape, and position of each bubble, you can spell out binary or even Morse code. Researchers in Beijing developed the idea after studying air pockets found naturally in glaciers. According to mechanical engineer Meng Jie Song, the advantage is that ice messages don't need much energy, are far more covert than paper, and can last a very long time. In regions where the cold preserves everything, these frozen notes could carry information safely for years, ready to be read at any time just by looking at the bubbles. 8. England's stubborn souvenirs. The British Museum is packed with artifacts that other countries would really like back. The Greeks want the Elgin marbles. India has asked for the Amaravati Stupa marbles. Nigeria has long campaigned for the return of the Benin bronzes. Even Maori communities in New Zealand have called for the repatriation of preserved ancestral heads. But the most famous of all is probably the Rosetta Stone, the key that helped us solve ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. It was carved around 300 BCE and was rediscovered in Egypt by Napoleon's forces in the early 1800s. But after the British defeated the French, the stone ended up in London instead. Today, it sits in the British Museum, where it's been the centerpiece for over 200 years. While Egypt has repeatedly asked for its return, the Rosetta Stone is still in England. 7. When your trash pile is full of dinosaurs. Archaeologists have a word for an ancient trash heap. They call it a midden. Usually it's just broken pottery or animal bones. But one midden found in Nevada was packed with ichthyosaur fossils, and the way they're arranged looks anything but natural. As you can imagine, archaeologists and scientists alike are scratching their heads over the find. But one paleontologist, Mark McMenamin, thinks he might have figured out the mystery. According to him, the pile was made by a giant kraken. The claim is incredibly controversial, but according to McMenamin, squid-like predators nearly 100 feet long could have hunted ichthyosaurs half their size and dragged the remains together into a fossil boneyard. The bones all showed different levels of seawater exposure, so they probably didn't all die together. And modern squid are known to rearrange objects in their environment, so for all we know, maybe their ancient cousins did too. 6. Beavers saved a country millions. We all know that beavers love to build dams. We've seen the branches and mud piled up in rivers and ponds in pictures anyway, if not in real life. What is news, however, is that their engineering once saved Czech taxpayers the equivalent of about $1.2 million. Officials in the Czech Republic had been planning since 2018 to build a dam along the Klabava River. The goal was to protect the ecosystem from flooding, since floodwater full of sediment and acidic runoff would have been disastrous for the river's endangered crayfish. The plan stalled, though, because permits dragged on for years. Meanwhile, a colony of beavers got busy. Without blueprints, budgets, or government approvals, they built at least 4 dams of their own, and their handiwork ended up stabilizing the water and keeping the ecosystem safe, no construction needed. 5. We've found a way to harvest water from the sky. The air is loaded with water, but good luck trying to drink it with a straw. Up until now, there really wasn't a cheap or simple way to grab that moisture, except for moisture evaporators on Tatooine, but that's changing thanks to researchers at the University of Texas. They've come up with a low-cost gel film that basically drinks water out of the air. It's made from common, inexpensive materials and has a porous, water-loving structure that pulls in moisture, even from dry desert air. And it's cheap. A pound of gel only costs about $1, and depending on humidity, it can produce between 100 and 200 fluid ounces. To put that into perspective, a pint is 16 ounces. Stack the gels thicker or put them in arrays, and the output goes up even higher. For people living in areas where water is scarce, this could be a lifesaver. And you wouldn't even have to go to the Tashi station to collect power converters. 4. The world's smallest library. Josef Tari built what might be the world's smallest library, but it's anything but insignificant. Starting in 1972, he collected thousands of miniature books, well over 5,000 of them, all small enough to sit in the palm of your hand. One of the tiniest volumes measures just 2.9 by 3.2 millimeters, basically the size of a thumbnail. Many of them are more than a century old, with covers made of china, carved wood, or leather. His passion started in printer school, when he first stashed them in a paper box. Later, he filled custom shelves and even tracked down multiple copies so he could trade with other collectors. He kept going until his shelves were full, then donated the entire collection to the Yokai Mor City Library in Papa, Hungary. Today, they've got over 5,700 of the little treasures on display. 3. The rise of personal data brokers. Over the years, companies like Google and Facebook have made billions off of our personal data without us having any real say in it. But with new privacy laws like Europe's GDPR and a growing push for people to own their own information, a brand new job is popping up: the personal data broker. Think of them like financial advisors, but for your digital life. A broker could tell you where your data is going, how to protect it, and even how to sell it if you want to cash in. Startups like Invisibly are already testing ways to make this happen, giving people more control over what's shared and what stays private. With so much data being collected every second, having someone who can help you navigate that maze could become just as normal as having an accountant. 2. The Isle of Demons. If you've never heard of it, the name pretty much tells you everything. In 1542, a French noblewoman named Marguerite de Roc got stranded there in one of history's toughest survival stories. She was accused of having an affair during a sea voyage, and her own relative, who captained the ship, marooned her on this frozen island. With only her lover and a servant, she built a rough shelter and tried to hang on. Then, things got even harder. Marguerite gave birth during her exile, and within 16 months, she lost her baby, her lover, and her servant. She somehow lasted 2 full years alone, hunting whatever she could catch, before fishermen finally stumbled across her in 1544 and took her back to Europe. The island was already rumored to be full of demons and evil spirits, so Marguerite's story gave people even more reason to believe it. 1. Have we finally found the Ark? The Ark of the Covenant is one of the most famous missing treasures in history, and every so often, a discovery makes headlines claiming we're closer to finding it. The latest buzz comes from excavations at the ancient city of Shiloh in Israel. Archaeologists here have uncovered the ruins of a large stone structure that seems to match the size and layout of the biblical tabernacle, the portable sanctuary that, according to the Bible, once held the Ark itself. Around the site, they've also found over 100,000 animal bones, mostly from goats, sheep, and cattle. The researchers say it fits perfectly with descriptions of ritual sacrifices tied to the tabernacle. They also found pottery dating back to the same period when the tabernacle was said to be in use, nearly 400 years before the temple in Jerusalem was built. The evidence is intriguing, but it stopped short of proving the Ark was there. Where it ended up after the 13th century BCE is unfortunately still anyone's guess. And that's a wrap. But stick around for a moment. I've got some trivia lined up for you. How many trees do we lose to lightning every year? Is it A, 320 million, B, 44 million, C, 32 million, or D, 5 billion? Drop your answers in the comments below, and while you're at it, let me know if you'd like to see more lists just like this. And if you're still in the mood for more, well, I've got you covered with our related video, 25 captivating interesting facts that'll blow your mind. It starts with a shocking fact about one of your favorite staple foods and gets only weirder after that. That link will pop up right here in just a few seconds. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.